Hello and welcome to Hoops Royalty. I'm King Jemison, alongside, in this case, a very disappointed Karna Venkatraj, because we are just coming off 2.5 hours of watching some ugly Grizzlies basketball as the Grizz drop their season opener 111-104 to the New Orleans Pelicans. It's a division loss. It's a very rare home loss. It is starting off this Ja Morant suspension in a very bad way. Karna, we're going to go through and each give our 3 takeaways on this Grizzlies opening loss. No royal decree, no news of the realm, no King's Court today. Just straight to the takeaway. Hit me with your first thought on today's loss.
There's a clear weakness in the Memphis Grizzlies, and it might extend past Ja Morant's 25 games, and it starts with Steven Adams going down. We got out-physical. Whatever you want to say, the physicality just wasn't there. Running through some stats, Valanciunas, 12 rebounds, Zion, 4 offensive rebounds, Larry Nance Jr., 7 rebounds, 52-37 rebounds, Zion bullied when he needed to. This game reminded me of how I used to play basketball with my 5th graders. Just absolute domination. Zion yelling like I would at like a 5'1" little 5th grader. Zion was yelling at like Jaren Jackson Jr. and Xavier Tillman like that. It was absolutely... It sucks to see your team lose like that because it's such a physical domination. And even though the score looked close, it never felt like the Pelicans ever struggled to score because they could always go inside and get baskets and easy offensive rebounds because we just didn't have the physicality down low.
Yeah, I could not agree more, because what we just saw was a weak Grizzlies performance. And by the way, y'all have not seen the videos, but Karna going up against his 5th graders is one of the funniest things you're going to ever see. The best part is, after this man dribbles out on a 4'11" kid and posts him up and scores, Karna's mean mugging. He's flexing. He's acting like he just did something. Zion can flex. He did do something. He dunked on the defensive player of the year. Okay, but Karna, come on.
Don't come for me like that, because if they talk mess in the classroom, they have to learn at some point. You don't talk to mess to adults, and when you go step on the court with me, that's grown folks' business. And you know that. That's grown folks' business.
Okay, maybe I do know that. Maybe I have been known to do a little flexing on 4th graders as well. And when I was a basketball coach, I sometimes would go at the end of practice just like me versus 10 kids. And anyways, I completely agree with your takeaway. And this is going to be an endemic problem for the Memphis Grizzlies without Steven Adams, without Brandon Clark, today without Santi Aldama as well. It's not just the rebounding, though. Yes, the rebounding numbers look very bad in this game. In this game, the Grizzlies were out-rebounded 52-37, 11 offensive boards for the Pelicans, 8 for the Grizzlies. But more so than that, it was the ease of the looks the Pelicans were getting at the rim because of their physicality. Listen, Xavier Tillman was great in this game. As good of a performance from a 6'8" center as you could possibly get, 17 points, 12 rebounds. But he didn't get enough help, and he is not Steven Adams. He doesn't eat up all that space, eat up all those rebounds by himself. It's going to have to be more of a team effort, and that was not the case on Wednesday night. Ready for my first takeaway, Karna?
Hit me with it.
My first takeaway is the Grizzlies have a math problem offensively, and that math problem is they've decided to fix their half-court offensive issues by shooting a lot of threes. Okay, great. Analytics love it. Shooting threes, good for offense. Till you realize who's shooting those threes. Till you realize that the Memphis Grizzlies have like 2.5 good three-point shooters, maybe. And now you're having Xavier Tillman shoot 5 threes. You're having Marcus Smart shoot 6 threes. You're having Derrick Rose shoot 4 threes. Jaren Jackson Jr. attempt over half of his field goal attempts from 3. 5 of his 9 shots were from beyond the 3-point line. Talk about that in a second. But needless to say, the 3-point line is what cost the Grizzlies the game. They go 12 of 43. That's good for 28%. those 43 threes were almost 10 more than they averaged last season. Last season, they were 10th in the NBA in threes per game. Based on the first game alone, the Grizzlies are tied for first in threes per game. They're going to try to build the offense out of the three-point line. They want to play 5 out. They want to get up as many. They want to let it fly. They want to get up as many threes as possible. The problem with that is this is not an elite three-point shooting team, and that showed in a big way. Now, what options do they have? We'll talk about that later in the episode. Frankly, the offense was quite disjointed beyond just the jacking up threes aspect. But if this is how the Grizzlies want to win, then they're going to have to turn a bunch of mediocre shooters into good shooters fast. Because if they want to live and die by the three, they're going to be deader than a doornail.
I love analytics. I work for a baseball team, so very familiar with the use of analytics in a lot of different cases. In fact, I am a data analyst in a lot of ways. That is my job. But if the personnel doesn't meet or match up with the analytics, then the analytics are meaningless because you have nothing to execute on the analytics. So maybe the front office sees something different that I don't. But I think you tweeted it perfect. We only have 2.5 good shooters, right? So maybe jacking up threes just isn't the right move. What bothered me is after you go 7 for 28.5 and you're still in the game somehow, why are we not making an adjustment there? And I guess that gets me into my next takeaway. You ready for it, King?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Jaren Jackson Jr. had maybe the most disappointing start to the season I've ever seen, and just a horrible, horrible game, a game to forget. And stop me if I've heard this before, but Jaren shrunk in a really big moment. Surprise. I'm sorry. And some of it is not his fault, and we'll get into that. Mm-hmm. But going 0 for 5 from three-point land is his fault, and it was really, really bad because they were open looks. They were daring him to shoot at certain points. It looked bad. So we can get into it. Let's get into the actual basketball of it. So, before I get into that, he was arguably the worst big on the floor tonight. And I'm sorry, the Grizzlies just don't. He was the worst. If you count Roddy as a big, I don't know if you want to, but he was
probably is right now. Yeah,
he probably is right now. If you're getting outplayed by Xavier Tillman and David Roddy, we are not winning many basketball games if you're Jaren Jackson Jr. And it's kind of embarrassing. Sorry. It was a little emotional, but he had a terrible game. But that's not all his fault. I think the coaching for him was inexplicable at some points. Maybe it's because I had my hands buried in my face buried in my hands some of the game. But did Jaren Jackson Jr. get a post touch? I don't believe he did.
Honestly, I don't remember one. He drove in a couple times. Yeah. But I don't remember him getting a low post touch even once. And Brevin Knight called it out in the broadcast. He said they're not using Jaren in any spot except outside the three-point line. And yes, in a matchup like he had today against Jonas Valanciunas, it does make sense for Jaren Jackson Jr. to spend some time outside the three-point line to get Valanciunas away from the basket and then utilize JJJ's athleticism to blow by him. But that wasn't really happening, first of all. We know what Jaren was doing offensively, and it was either nothing or bricking threes. And you got to try the post up at some point.
Yeah.
You ran your offense through the post up in game 1 against the Lakers last playoffs. Jaren puts up over 30 points facing a front court of LeBron and AD. He can post up even on Jonas Valanciunas and Zion Williamson. They weren't trying that, and that was the strangest thing about the Grizzlies' game plan to me.
And if Jake LaRavia gets a post touch, Jaren Jackson Jr., I don't care if it's a brick wall down there. You got to give Jaren Jackson Jr. a post touch.
Yeah.
And I maybe caught the ball a couple of times within the 3-point circle, but it was a comedy of errors, both from the coaching staff and from Jaren Jackson Jr. himself in utilization of his skill set. It just looked bad. It looked bad. I mean, the only hope I think for this is anyone that watched that game from a person who just started playing basketball to hopefully Taylor Jenkins in the front office will tell you that Jaren Jackson Jr. was underutilized and they should have tried a different thing. So it was so bad. His performance was so bad. It should be obvious that the path forward is not what we saw tonight.
Yeah.
He's not a spot up 3-point shooter. He needs to get down low. He needs to do something on the block. Yeah. When he's arguably your worst big, we are in for a tough night.
That is true. Because, by the way, 3 of the people who would be in your big rotation were out of tonight's game. 2 of them are more than likely out for the season. We know Steven Adams is out for the season. We assume Brandon Clark is, or at least he's out till March or April. And Santi Aldama also missed tonight's game, which means you really needed Jaren to step up to be that physical presence. And I do want to call out that he had 5 blocks in this game and at times was a defensive monster. But the Grizzlies without Ja Morant need him to be at the very least a second scoring option, if not the primary scoring option. They need him to be an offensive hub. And right now he's acting like PJ Tucker. He's basically standing outside the 3-point line. And, when he gets the ball, he'll put it up. But otherwise, they're not running any offense through him. That's got to change because he's one of the biggest talents in the league. He's a 7-footer with elite athleticism. Get this man going towards the rim. And even if it leads to some turnovers, you still get something going positively on offense. You get something going towards the basket. He's one of the few players on your team without Ja Morant that can generate offense for himself. You got to let him do it. My second takeaway, Karna. We've talked a lot about offensive problems in this episode. I'm afraid I've got another one to bring up. Marcus Smart does not look like a real point guard at this moment. He had 5 turnovers in this game. Grizzlies had 13 as a team, which is not bad, but they looked so disjointed offensively. And there was a whole lot of bobbled, deflected passes and dribbles that could have been turnovers. But even though they might not have gone the other way, they still knocked out the flow of the Grizzlies offense. We know that over the past few seasons, the Grizzlies have been fine playing without a true point guard. Obviously, Tyus Jones was an incredible backup, but they would play lineups without Tyus Jones or Ja Morant, and they were able to be effective. Desmond Bane is an excellent passer for a wing. Marcus Smart is a really strong passer, but neither of them is a true point guard, and the Grizzlies kind of need Marcus Smart to be. We're not even going to get into Derrick Rose. I thought he was disastrous at times. He knocked down 2 of his 4 threes, but outside of that, there's very little to say positive about his return to Memphis. I'm glad he got a standing ovation. I don't think he's going to be getting many of those throughout the season. But Marcus Smart is the one who's going to be a factor for the Grizzlies all season, even once Ja Morant is healthy. It would be nice if he could be a playmaker who can get the offense started. That was not happening, and if it's not him, there's really no one else to fill that void. What that leads to is the Grizzlies were taking a lot of bad looks in this game. They were not generating easy baskets at the rim.
I feel, and maybe it's the emotions coursing through my veins here, but I think what's really disappointing about Marcus Smart's start, and I'll get to a caveat in just a second. One thing that's really sad about this start is there's a lot of hype around this signing.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this, and he had a good game. In a lot of ways, he had a good game. He did a lot of things he was supposed to. There was a little bit of Dylan Brooks I saw.
No.
In terms of shot selection. In terms of shot selection.
Okay, tell me more.
And maybe I'm just traumatized, but contested 3-pointers that he had no business taking. Pull-up threes. Like, that's not what we need from Marcus Smart, even though he's a much better shooter than Dylan Brooks. Don't come at me. He's not Dylan Brooks. I know that. He's much, much better than Dylan Brooks. He's head and shoulders better than Dylan Brooks. I know that. But in a way that sometimes the ball could stop with Dylan Brooks, the ball stopped with Marcus Smart. And that can't happen. It just can't. He's not the guy he's a guy that needs to not be turning the ball over and facilitating for others. I don't know if he has that skill set. I think he does. And we saw flashes of it. The caveat I'll give you is he's coming off an injury. I don't think he's 100% right. That doesn't really account for some of the shots he took, or some of the things he did with the ball. But I think 100% Marcus Smart is maybe a more efficient person with the ball. So that's my only caveat for him.
Yeah, he's so much better than Dillon Brooks offensively. At least he does make some plays for his teammates. He had 3 assists, in this game. Wow, that looks worse every time I look at it. 3 assists, 5 turnovers from the person who's supposed to be your point guard. I don't know what sound just came out of me, but it was not a happy one.
Yeah, I'm just having Mike Conley right now. Anyway, I'm not going to say anything.
They need Marcus Smart defensively. At least he is an average 3-point shooter, 2 of 6 in this game. Frankly, that kind of hangs around his averages for his career, but that's still better than Dillon Brooks. I think that Marcus Smart is still figuring out how to play with this bunch of Grizzlies. He only got 1 game of the preseason, and he is not a pure point guard. He's being asked to be a point guard, and he can be a good passer and playmaker, but that's not his most natural position. So it's probably going to take a second. And the flip side of that is Desmond Bane might be a score-first point guard, but he is capable of running the point, and I think their Grizzlies are going to have to lean on that more. His passing was fantastic. He had five.
Let me get my last takeaway.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to steal your takeaways. Yeah. So hit me with your third and final takeaway.
This is a royal decree straight from King Jameson, one of the greatest basketball minds of our generation. Desmond Bane is a all-star. He is a all-star in the making. This is Desmond Bane's coming out party. We're not going to leave it all negative. He's our guy. He homegrown talent. Love seeing him ball out. Aggressive with the ball. Hit 3-pointers. Just an all-around great night for Desmond Bane. Yeah. You can go ahead and hit me with the stats, too.
Here's Desmond Bane's stat line from opening night. 31 points on 50% from the field, 50% from 3, 80% from the line. Added 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block as well. He was +6 on the game. Obviously, team best there. That matches the eye test as well. Desmond Bane is a top 30 player in the NBA. I'm not going to go through and do the list, but I think he's going to play like a top 30 player in the NBA in the first part of this season. And I absolutely agree, and I'm going to restamp my royal decree that he will be an all-star. And part of that is opportunities. They are going to build the whole daggum plane out of Desmond Bane. They're only going to go so far as he can take them. I tweeted after the first half, the only good Grizzlies offensive possessions were ones where Desmond Bane touched the ball. Otherwise, nothing good was happening.
And let me just say one thing. 1 block for Desmond Bane. Take that wingspan. Take that wingspan, truthers.
3 stocks in this game. I mean, come on, the man's a playmaker.
Yeah, the guy is him, so don't ever forget that. Desmond Bane, all-star this year. King, your last takeaway.
My last takeaway is we've been doom and gloom on this podcast. But really, if 2 players in particular step up in this game, the Grizzlies win and we are feeling fantastic. 2 players combined to go 0 of 10 from 3. Those 2 players are also 2 of the 5 best currently available on your roster. That would be Jaren Jackson Jr., who we've talked about ad nauseum, and Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard, who shot over 50% from 3 in his time with the Grizzlies last season, went 0 of 5 tonight, continuing a really bad preseason that he had. I believe he was 4 of 18 from 3 in the preseason. He's clearly in a slump. We know that's going to not last for long, though. This guy's been one of the best 3-point shooters in the league for years now. Honestly, if those guys shoot basically close to their averages, like 40% for for Luke Kennard, 35% for Jaren, even if it was 30%, then there's like 12 points right there. And in a game that was decided by 7, that feels pretty significant. Also, if you get the probably 4 combined makes that you can expect from those two guys, your overall 3-point numbers don't look nearly as poor. So the NBA is a make or miss league. It's one of the greatest cliches out there. Unfortunately, it's a cliche because it's true. It's going to be particularly true for the Grizzlies this year. And one of the reasons why I'm not completely concerned about this opening night loss is who was doing the missing. I trust that Luke Kennard is going to eventually make his threes. Frankly, I trust that Jaren's going to make his threes too. I don't necessarily expect anything more from Xavier Tillman, from Marcus Smart, from Derrick Rose, from David Roddy. Please get Jake LaRavia out of my face, minus 11 in 15 minutes. But the two guys who I talked about at the opening, Kennard and Jackson, they're going to do better than 0 of 10. And if they do, this loss doesn't happen, or at least it looks a lot prettier.
Look, I know LaRavia did not have a good game. Sure. But I think they are doing this see what we have strategy with him. And like actually just putting him out there and being like, all right, do something. Like you know that meme where it's like poking the thing with a stick and it's like do something. That's what we're doing with Jake LaRavia. Yeah, there was not too much to say. The 360, like that was a little Kobe-esque move. That was pretty sick. Yeah, that was awesome. But other than that, not much to say. He had some good defensive moments too.
Yeah.
I
think his problems looked worse in the context of the bench. If you look at the plus-minus numbers, our bench got destroyed. Kennard minus 14, Derrick Rose minus 10, Jake LaRavia minus 11, David Roddy minus 3. Those were the only 4 guys who came off the bench as the Grizzlies utilize a 9-man rotation. Interesting to see, and I think you're exactly right, Karna, that LaRavia played ahead of Conchar. Conchar was going through something personal during the preseason, did not appear, but was not injured. It seems like he'll probably leapfrog LaRavia in that rotation and provide a little more stability there. But at the moment, they're going to roll with Jake, and it did not look pretty. The whole bench looked bad, and that's what's going to happen when you have 4 key contributors out.
One last thing, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Zaire Williams had an okay game, I think, for him. He showed a lot of flashes, some good defensive moments, some bad defensive moments, which is to be expected. What did you think of his performance? Was there any takeaways that you think that are meaningful for the rest of the season? Last thing.
I thought Zaire Williams was fine in this game. 9 points, 4 rebounds. Didn't get an assist, a steal, or a block, which is kind of going back to his old habits, not what we saw from him in the preseason. But I thought he was very active. I thought he was really competing on the boards, maybe not hauling many in, but certainly giving great effort there. He was 1 of 3 from beyond the arc, but they were all 3 difficult attempts. I'd love to see them find some open looks for him. Frankly, it seemed like the Pelicans were respecting him as a shooter. I thought he was fine in this game, and I'd love to see them continue to use his athleticism as a lob threat and give him some pick and roll opportunities. Let him handle the basketball, get moving towards the basket, because he is one of your more dynamic players at this point. And he may be incredibly raw, and there's going to be turnovers and ugly possessions that result from Zaire running the offense, but I think you got to give him a shot to at least handle some ball handling responsibilities.
I agree. You're playing big minutes, seize the moment, give him the opportunity, see what you have. He had a decent game this game. We'll see. We're still in a we'll see moment. I don't think any definitive statements were made about any of our young guys tonight.
Yep. Karna, any last thoughts on the Grizzlies' 7-point opening night loss to the Pels?
The Nuggets might be a tough proposition. Don't be surprised if we go 0-2, but that's okay. We have the Trailblazers coming up. We'll pick up a win there. But no, I mean, there's hope here. There's hope here. We've been negative, but the thing is, that's a good Pelicans team. We didn't lose by much at the end of the day. We were in the game at all times, even though the physicality looked off. Keep the faith. Keep the faith in Taylor Jenkins. Hopefully, I know that's a tough proposition for a lot of Grizzlies Twitter people. Keep the faith in Jaren Jackson Jr. I know I was super negative today, but he's still a young guy. Keep the faith in these guys. We got a good team. Just gonna take some time for guys like Marcus Smart, Derrick Rose to make the impact that they need to, and the chemistry to really flow without Ja.
That's a great closing note. Grizzlies lose their opener, but have opportunities on the schedule coming up. Another home game on Friday against the Nuggets. Not sure if that's one of those opportunities, but then on the second night of a back-to-back, they head to Washington for their first road game of the season. First game against Tyus Jones, and then they return home to play Dallas. So there's going to be a bunch of toss-ups. Frankly, the Grizzlies are going to have to win some close games to stay afloat without Ja Morant. And the way they're playing right now, they need Jaren Jackson Jr. to step up offensively. They're going to keep launching the threes, so it's just going to be a matter of making some of them. So that's it for us at Hoops Royalty. Thank you for listening. And if you did not see, on social media today, I posted about a giveaway I'm doing. I've got a Ja Morant signed t-shirt. He signed it for me in person in October 2021 at Open Practice. I am going to give it to a lucky listener. All you have to do is like and subscribe on YouTube. I'm really going to be tracking that subscription part of it. That's where I'm going to find the names to enter into the proverbial hat. And the other option is to leave a 5-star review and nice comments on Apple Podcast or Spotify. I'll be tracking those as well, putting those names in the hat for the giveaway. You can get an extra entry into the Ja Morant autograph shirt sweepstakes by retweeting the post on the artist formerly known as Twitter. But go out and do that. We're trying to grow the show headed into this season that might not have started well, but we have hope that the Grizzlies are going to get it together in these next few games. Thank you for listening. This has been Hoops Royalty, bringing you Royal Hoops takes about the Memphis Grizzlies and NBA. I'm King Jemison alongside Karna Venkatraj, and have a fantastic night.